Hello, everyone. It's great to be able to join you today for today's episode of Lunch and Listen. This is one I'm particularly excited about because, as some of you may know, cello is actually one of my instruments. So I'm particularly excited to get to be a bit of a cello geek today with our wonderful principal cellist, Yao. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Yao to this Zoom webinar. Hi, Yao.
Hi, Clement. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here.
Wonderful. So you were born in Beijing, and I read that your father was also a cellist.
My father was a cellist, and we actually attended the same school. He was sort of He was, of course, much earlier than I did. Was at the Central Conservatory of Music in Beijing, and I later attended the same school, not to finish because I came to America. And he was the one made the decision that I was going to be a cellist, although I didn't want to be.
What did you want to rather?
You know, I actually want to be a violinist for
Mm.
some odd reason. I don't really know why. I started playing the cello and piano when I was 4 years old. I guess before I was born, he already talked to my mother that I was going to be a cellist. My mom is a doctor, a gynecologist, but she wanted, her family side had a lot of doctors.
Mm.
Since I was little, I have this problem with needles. So even right now, when I go to get my blood test, I would faint, like if I don't lie down. So, you know, so being a doctor is just out of the question since I was little. But my father used to take me to his rehearsals and concerts, even when I was very young. I was always very quiet. That's why he could bring me around. He was working for the back then the Central Philharmonic Orchestra. Right now, it's the National Philharmonic in China. There was a picture one of his friends took that was sitting on the side, staring at the orchestra. I was doing this. And that's the first hint everyone had that I wanted to be a violinist. And I could talk, so I guess one day I just said I want to learn the violin. And he didn't shut me down right away. What he did was he bought me a violin. Only it was a full-size violin. Now imagine I was 3 years old, holding a full-size violin. I do have a picture somewhere at home. So sure enough, about a week later, I said, no, this is uncomfortable. I don't want to do this. And then he brought out a 1/10 size cello that he prepared for a long time. He said, try this. You see, this is not so much bigger than the violin, and you can sit down and play, and it fits. So that's how I started to play the cello. And of course, later I realized he tricked me into it. But I don't regret. I mean, with that said, I do wish when I was practicing that I had the opportunity, I had I could walk around, because being a cellist, you're stuck in the chair. You can never walk around like a violinist do, standing in front of the window, look out, and I can just.
It is a professional limitation of the cello.
And it's much easier to travel with the violin than the cello.
Yep, you never have to worry about buying a second airplane seat for the cello.
Well, unless you go to Japan. In Japan, violins needs to buy part of a seat to bring on board.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what are your cello teachers was the late and really great pedagogue and just a wonderful cellist, Eleanor Schoenfeld, who taught for many, many years at USC in LA. And she's just the number of wonderful cellists she has taught is astounding. So how did you end up becoming her students and coming to this country to study with her?
I was very lucky. It was such a coincidence. 1987, she and her sister, Alice Schoenfeld, older sister, who is an amazing violinist, also violin pedagogue, they decided to go to China. That's the first time they've ever been to Asia. They wanted to see the culture. They wanted to just see the people. And when they're in China, I think they talked to one of the translators, and then realized there is the Central Conservatory and then there are orchestras around. So they got a hold somebody from my father's orchestra. Back then because it's at the national level. They hosted a small masterclass for the family members who worked for the symphony, and I was lucky enough to be part of it. I was 11 years old, and I played the masterclass. And after she asked my father if she could take me to America to study with her.
Wow.
And my father already had plans like that to send me away either to Europe or America to learn, but he felt 11-year-old was still too young.
Mhm.
So they waited until when I was 15. After I finished my 8th grade at the conservatory, I auditioned to come either to the Crossroads School in Los Angeles or the Idlewild Art Academy. Back then it was Idlewild School of Music and Arts, which is in the mountains. And then she
In our own neighborhood here in Temecula, right?
yeah, in the mountains, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And back then people were still writing in letters. So one of the letters she wrote to my father is, because I was a boy living in LA at homestay, everything's gonna be too much fun. But boarding school inside the mountain will be the best for me. So I went to Idlewild for 4 years. That's when I first started studying with her. She passed away, unfortunately, December 31st, right across New Year, 2006, 2007. So December 31st, 2006. And even 1 month before her passing, I went her home and played for her. I did that even after I finished school and after I got the job here at the San Diego, just to have her check on me and just to visit her. So for 15 years, I never had another teacher. So I always stayed with her. Yeah.
She must have been a wonderful teacher.
She was a great teacher, and she basically made me who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like a mother, because besides her sister, she did not have any other family members. So all her students were like her kids. And fortunately, we had quite a few Schoenwald students here in the San Diego Symphony. We have Mary Sento, who studied with her, Richard Levine also studied with her, Shen Zhuo, the cellist. He was the unlucky one. He was supposed to come from Yale to study with Miss Schoenfeld. The second day after he arrived to Los Angeles, she passed away.
Oh.
So they did meet once and played a lesson. And Shen's wife, Anna Cho, who is our regular substitute, did her doctorate studying with Ms. Schoenfeld. So Ms. Schoenfeld made a huge contribution, not only to the San Diego Symphony, but to the musicians around the world. She has students probably most of the major orchestras around the world. And yeah, she's just a great person, and she does care about everything. We don't go to lessons just to learn how to play. She teaches how to be a good person, how to even dress ourselves properly, and she would come to our concerts and tell us, okay, you wear this color tie and you cannot wear that color shirt. And she would always have a bottle of hairspray in case she feels our hair is a little messy. She herself is a very old school, organized person. We would have lessons at work. Personally, I've had lessons starting from 6 a.m. or the latest starting at 10 or 11 p.m. at her home or at a festival. She's always dressed in a dress, wearing her high heels. So she's always ready. She never wore anything else. So for us going into lesson, we can never wear shorts. The girls can never wear boots. Even jeans are not great. She's loosened up over the years, but she really wants the old school way. And then she didn't teach because she wanted to teach. She really wanted to nurturing everyone. We were scheduled 1 lesson a week. The most I've had was 8 lessons a week.
Wow.
And I've never had lessons shorter than 2 hours. Yeah. Wow. So I was very lucky to have her as a teacher and mentor.
She sounds like such a wonderful person. Such a wonderful, warm, caring. I almost want to say I wish I had the chance to meet her and maybe adopt her as my grandmother or
Yeah,
something like that.
everyone would love her. Everyone would love her. And talking to her, it's like opening a story.
Mm.
How she experienced her experiences in her life, how they came from Europe to America. I think she had $35 with her, but between she and her sister, they had 11 Leica cameras because it's
Wow.
easier to get a hand on the Leicas. So they brought a few to America to sell, to make some money to survive. And how she was teaching at the same time with the great cellist Piatigorsky,
Mm-hmm.
and then Yasha Heifetz was also in the same building. I mean, the story just goes on and on. It's just amazing.
Mm-hmm. We have a question from the audience about asking what are some of the most memorable lessons you've learned from playing or performing with Ms. Schoenfeld?
I have many because I mean I have probably thousands of lessons over the 15 years with her, but one thing that I remember the most was remember I was 21 years old at USC already, and
Mm-hmm.
I was playing the Saint-SAENS concerto, which in that year I basically performed 26 times, and I was doing it's one day before the performance with debut or symphony orchestra at the dress rehearsal, but not a dress rehearsal, the night before.
Mm-hmm.
We had rehearsal at USC, so she came to listen, and I was tired because it was at the end of the day I had school during the day, and I didn't play so well in the rehearsal, but it was a very short rehearsal. I only had 30 minutes for a 23-minute work.
Mm.
And so she just, after I did this, I knew that she wanted to talk. So I followed her to her studio and she said, okay, open your case. Let's talk through it. And I was just very tired. I was very not up to par, you know.
Mm.
So she gave me this lecture. And it was, back then I felt it was a very mean lecture. And somehow I started crying. I remember I was 21, 22 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I don't normally cry. And I was really crying. I felt I was, you know, what did I do wrong? And I know the piece, she's heard me playing the piece well before, and she still gave me this lecture. And then she said, don't cry. Doing that doesn't make you feel any better.
Mm.
And then she told me one story. She said, when you are on stage playing for the audience, do they know what kind of day you've been through? They will not. Do they know what you just experienced? They will not. They want to hear you play. They want to hear your 100%. You might be able to, you might have a concert at 9 a.m. in the morning or any time of the day, because in Spain, the latest concert I've ever played started at 9:30 p.m. especially. That was in Spain too. So you never know when you're going to be asked to perform. And you always would have to give your 100%. So that really made a huge mark in me that even nowadays, I tell my students, a lot of times, not a lot of times, for sure the audience does not know what we go through in a day, whether we're tired, how we have to work, but they want the product, and we need to give our 100%, 150% just so that they deserve what they came here for. Yeah, so that's the biggest lesson. One of the biggest lessons.
So true. And I think that's a very valuable life lesson in anything.
Yes.
To always give your best, and when you're on stage, you're really performing and doing something for someone else, to give joy and happiness and a beautiful experience to someone else. Yeah. So I understand that some of your cellos and some of your bows also have a link to Ms. Schoenfeld's legacy. Could you tell us a bit more about those?
Last year, her sister passed away, unfortunately, also. So the Schoenfeld Foundation contacted me about 2-3 months ago because they were having an estate sale. And I was lucky to acquire 90% of all her cello music.
Wow.
Many personal belongings, including the case that she used when she traveled to China, and when I studied with her before she changed into the light case, and her briefcase still with all her things in it. But I was very lucky to get her second cello, and 3 of her bows, not the most expensive, the famous bows, but I was just lucky to have those as memory. And actually the Bach earlier I played on, and later the SWAN I will be playing for everyone was played on that particular instrument. So I was more than lucky to have that. And with her music, I've always wanted to have her collection, because if I could share.
Yes, please.
This is the Dvorak concerto with her name on it. That's the part she would use in lessons. And I hope you guys can see the markings. There's so much marking on there. And, you know, it explains how she thought, what one needs to do, what student needs to do. I mean, they're just, it's a lot more than just notes. She spent her life working on those things. And I was lucky to have 90% of all her music. So I started a library just with her stuff on it. So every day, instead of reading books, which I don't really do, I just open up a piece and read through that just to read her writings. I mean, there are German, which I don't understand, and they're English, but they're bowings, they're markings. So in different color, blue, pencil, pen, red, everything, just to get an idea what she wanted us to do. And there are multiple, sometimes for a little passage, there are multiple markings. At her different stage in her life, she felt differently. So she would make changes. And for example, the Bach cello suite, she had, personally, I had 5 or 6 different copies, and she had more than 10. So right now I have about 15 different copies or editions of Bach. And yeah, it's just a great collection that I could have. And a few interesting items, including, if I can show them, sorry, I'm a little bit.
Yes, please.
This is a little, can you see? Yeah, this is a little statue.
A cellist and a violinist.
Right, that's
behind her,
her
right?
sister and her. And this is the box she had in her office, but now I keep like strings in. And this is the cello stand she used to use, and this is the chair she used to sit on when she teaches us at home. And that's a briefcase she used to have with her initials on it.
Wow.
And this is the famous clock that she had in her studio that we used to stare on, hoping the lesson would finish. But now I look at it, you know, I put the things in my studio right now around me so that I can be reminded that she's always watching, that I have to work hard with her.
That's just beautiful that there's still part of her life and part of her with you. So I know there's also a very interesting story about the bows you have, and I think I can see 1 or 2 of them hanging on the wall.
Here I have about another 13, 14 laying in the boxes. I have a collection about 20 cello bows, and even my father said, how many bows can you use at once? You know, you can only use one at a time. And so people ask me all the time, why do you have so many cello bows? And the thing is, when I came to America when I was 1991, I had a Chinese cello bow and a Chinese cello, because no one could really afford to buy anything substantial back then in China.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't really have, we've never even seen good instruments or good bows.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 years later, my teacher helped me to borrow an instrument through the Colburn Foundation. I was very lucky. Over the next 8 years, I used 4 different cellos, great cellos. And she herself lended me one of her cello bows. It was a much different experience because using a good instrument and using a good bow will really allow me to learn better. When you have better equipment, you get things done. Not only easier, it gives you more options. So, and she said, you know, one day you're going to have a job, you're going to earn some money, and make sure you buy yourself a bow or something nice to use. So I started playing for the San Diego Symphony, or the first time I subbed for the San Diego Symphony was the summer of 1999. And with that money I earned, and a little bit later, I saved up a little more, I bought myself the first cello bow. And then ever since that, whenever I save up something, I would buy a cello bow or a cello if I can. And but I also lend it to my students because that's what she did to help me. There are a lot of students I have or people that don't have enough money to acquire one. When it's time for them to find or use another bow or instrument, even instrument, I would lend them to use. So it sort of continues my teacher's legacy, I guess, because that really helped anybody to improve.
Yeah. Absolutely. Speaking of bows, we have another question from the audience. How do you decide which bow to use?
That's a good question. Obviously, all the bows I have, I like them. There isn't a bow that I don't like, and I'm rather familiar with all of them. There are 1 or 2 that I feel the most comfortable with. It's simply because the weight, the balance, and depending on which cello that I use. I do myself have 4 cellos, and that I normally would use between the 2 of them. For the summer outdoor concerts, I would use something else. But for the cello that speaks a little, react a little slower, I would use a more stiff bow. On lyrical piece, I would use something else. For Bach, I would use another, or it just depends what I'm playing. Obviously, to movement, I'm not able to change. Also, the instrument would change. The sound would change because of weather. In San Diego, we have a variety of different weather. In the morning might be cold, at noon might be burning hot. Sometimes it's very humid, sometimes it's very, very dry. So the instrument will react differently, almost on a daily basis. Then I would have to make different suggestions for myself using whichever bow. And I do once in a while just need to play through them, just to keep them working. So it's fun to have 20 bows. It's not fun to have to maintenance them. To take 20 bows for rehear, it's yeah, it costs a lot, and it's so I rehear them in different seasons, so I can remember them in bunches. I always bring 4 or 5 bows for rehear at a time. Yeah, so that's how I would pick my bow to use.
That's fantastic. I'm sure the horses will also appreciate that you're not doing all the bows at the same time. So we're coming close to the end of our time today, but I wanted to ask you, how have you been keeping busy during this time when we're stuck at home and we're not able to play with colleagues and make music together? Have you been taking this opportunity to learn other music?
It's one of the most difficult time I've ever experienced. Not working for, by now, about 6 months. For the past, I started working, as I said earlier, 1999. I've never had this long of a break, not working. So I did basically everything one can possibly imagine, or things you can't even imagine. For example, I used cedar blocks. I built a set of stairs next to the house myself. So I had to carry the cedar blocks myself, and just did that. And I'm just about to paint my garage myself, just for fun. And my wife and I, we watched a lot of movies and TV shows, but we did come to the conclusion that we need to start practice again. It was nice to have a short break, but then it was too long. And my quartet, I have a string quartet called the Great Wall String Quartet. We did produce quite a few videos. The first violin is in Berlin. He's a concertmaster of the Deutsche Symphony Orchestra. Second violin is in Munich, playing for the Munich Philharmonic. Our violist used to be Qiren Chen, our own viola principal, but he had to resign because of family matters. So in this odd situation, in April, we switched to a new violist who is the associate principal of the NDR Orchestra in Hamburg. So the four of us we virtually had virtual dinners online, and we recorded quite a few pieces. We have different projects coming up, including a set of Beethoven things. We're not going to record the whole thing, but so I did a lot of that over the break. Yeah, but can't wait to go back to work soon.
Neither can I. There's nothing quite like making music in person where you can really hear every little detail.
Yeah.
Well, we're just about out of time. So I think you mentioned this already, but what is the second piece the audience will be hearing from you today that you'll be playing?
Oh, the second piece is one of my favorite pieces ever. It's the Swan. I'm sure everybody knows that, and it's the piece is so dear for me. It's just because since I was 2 years old, as soon as I can remember anything, I remember my father playing it next to my bed every night. So I never really had to learn the piece. I did learn it years later to make it better, but I always knew the piece because I heard it for so many years. Yeah, so that's
wonderful. That's wonderful. And I'm delighted to be able to hear you play that. I don't think I've actually heard you play that wonderful piece. It's one of my favorite pieces for cello as well.
Great, and then I think it was on one of the Symphony CDs. We did the Carnival of Animals a few years back, and I think I'm
right.
Yeah, so that's
yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I'll have to go find my copy of that CD and bring it out.
Great.
But in the meantime, our audience will get to hear their own personal recording of Saint-SAENS' The Swan.
Without this time only get to hear the Swan, but without the water.
Without the water, yes. It's I guess it is still the dry season in California, so no water today.
No water. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Yao, I wanted to thank you for spending time with us today. This is just wonderful being able to.
It's been fun to share my stories, and hope everyone is doing well, and I hope to see everyone very soon.
Likewise. Until then, everybody, I hope you stay safe and well. Thanks for joining us today.